guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right into it because I know I have been gone for a hot minute, had a lot going on, got sick, been trying to recover. So what I'm gonna do is wrap up what I read for April and May into this video, and then hopefully I can get back on track for June. After this, you guys should see a something or other picks my June TBR. I don't know if I'm gonna do a color wheel, a random book generator, or my TBR jar, which lives over here. You guys probably can't see it because it's out of focus or out of frame. TBR jar. But let me go ahead and jump into this. So in total for April and May, I had to think about it. April and May, I read a total of 19 books. So I read 10 books in April, and then I read 9 books in May, which is a little bit under my average, but it's totally fine. That's still a lot of books to get read or have read within a 2-month time span. Some of these books I have the physical books of, and then some of them were audio books, or I know there are about 3 of them where I got e-arcs through NetGalley, so that was also pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the first book, and I do have my phone here somewhere over here for reference, so that I know exactly what kind of rating I gave to these books, and then I'll show you guys like the actual stack of books that I have. So in April, I read Parable of the Sawyer by Octavia E. Butler. And I do still have one more book of hers that I want to read. It's like the second book in, I don't know if this is a duology or a series, but the second book in this series to this book. So I read this book, and I get what people who have previously read this book have been saying, because it is eerie one to read about a timeline. It starts in 2024 and it ends in like 2027, I want to say. Let me just double check. Oh my goodness. Yeah, 2027. September 26, 2027 was like the last date that was in this book. So it is eerie to read about a book that was published a while ago, but has like 2024 to future dates. And some of the things that are happening in this book, or that happened in this book, are similar. I'm not going to say identical, but similar to things that have happened in 2024, 2025, and maybe potentially what could happen in the future. Like, even some of the character names are similar to people who are alive today, and it was a very trippy reading experience. The only thing that I didn't like, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. The only thing that stopped me from giving this 5 stars was the female main character. Her love interest, like the person she ended up being with, was like, oh my, he was like 20 or 30 years her senior. It was crazy. Or was he like, I think he was in his 40s going into his 50s. He had to be in like his early to mid 40s, and she was 18. So yeah, I couldn't get behind that, but this was written very well. And very, very eerie, I will say that. If you guys have been looking to get into Octavia E. Butler's readings or her works, go ahead and do that. The next book that I read, and this was to finish out a duology that I started, because I think I read the first book the month prior, and that's going to be Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. I will say I enjoyed this book, which is the second book in the duology, much better than the first book. I understand the first book is like all the world building, you meet all the characters, and like it sets you up if there's going to be additional books in the series or the duology or whatever it's going to be. But it was so much going on in the first book, like so many different POVs, like so many things that added to the story, and I felt like it kind of took away from what I was reading. Like sometimes I was extremely confused and I had to go back and like reread things, but this played out a lot better than the first book, and I don't understand why. Normally with me, when I'm reading a series, I enjoy the first book more than I enjoy the rest of the books, but with this duology, I enjoy the second book more than I enjoy the first book. Everybody really overhyped this book. Like, it's a good read. I enjoyed the fantasy magical elements within this book, but the magic system is not 100% unique. It is different, but I wasn't like floored. I was expecting, like, from what everybody else said in their reviews about this book, to just be like sucked in and blown away. It took me a while to finish the first book, and it took me a little minute to finish the second book too. I mean, it wasn't terrible, and I love me some fantasy romance thrown in there. This just, it kind of sort of hit the mark for me, but it definitely felt lacking in certain areas of it. But again, the second book was a lot better than the first book. I did give this 4 stars because, y'all, you can't really mess up a fantasy book in my opinion, but if you do, like, shame on you, damn. The only thing I noticed that was truly different was that the chapters kind of had like the person's name whose POV you were going to get it from, and then like crowns. In the first book, it had like the cards and what they said on them. I did enjoy that aspect in the book, like being able to see like the cards and what was said on them versus just having the crowns and the person's name. But it is nice to know whose perspective you are getting. I also did listen to the audiobook in conjunction with reading this because I love to immersive read, and it is so nice to hear the different characters' voices as well. So that was really nice. So there wasn't too much confusion there. I just, again, I had more gripe with the first book. The second book was a lot better. The next book that I read, I have a physical copy, Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, and this is a memoir. I picked this up solely for aesthetic purposes. I did enjoy the cover, not so much like this whole thing. Every book is a New York Times bestseller at this point. I got this book a while ago. It took me a while to read it, and I don't know if it was because towards the end of April I was starting to feel a little slumpy, and I've never in my life experienced a book slump, and I don't ever plan on experiencing one. This was 3.25 stars. This was okay. It did have a lot of aspects that I feel like anyone, particularly females, can learn from, like aspects of the author's life that she's sharing. But again, everybody's circumstance is a little bit different. So some of the things that she was saying in the book, it was just like, okay, you can really see the other side's privilege because everybody doesn't have, you know, the capability or the ability or the privilege to do X, Y, and Z. But it was a nice memoir nonetheless. I'm never like super like harsh towards people's memoirs. I've read several memoirs. This just, I don't know. I feel like if she would have, you know what, I'm not even gonna say that because I don't know what the thought process was behind this. I haven't had the best of luck with Dolly Alderton books. I did read good material and I did not enjoy it whatsoever. This was just okay. 3.25s is not bad. That's more than half if you're going off a 5-star rating. Would I recommend it? Yeah, give it a read. The thing that I really enjoyed was that every time she told you know, one of those stories, or she hit on a specific point in her life, there was a recipe that kind of followed. So if you guys are interested in recreating people's, you know, favorite foods, there's that. So again, 3.25s. It wasn't anything like life-changing or super phenomenal, but it was a good read nonetheless. The next book I read after that was The Lost Bookshop, and by Evie Woods. I did give that one a 3.75 stars. I liked it. I was just a little confused sometimes when I was listening to the audiobook, so I did have to go back and like play certain parts because it did give multiple POVs, which is fine. I typically don't like more than 2 to 3 POVs in a story, but for the premise and the purpose of this book, there were a lot more POVs. It was very interesting, and I love books about books. This had more to do with the people and how they came into possession of certain things like collectibles, rare artifacts, things of that nature, and then how they ended up in a bookshop, or how the main person ended up owning a bookshop. But nonetheless, it was a decent story. Probably not my best. I do know that Evie Woods has a collection of books, and I am a little bit more intrigued in some of her other ones, but this one was a decent read as well. The next book that I listened to was The Personal Librarian. This book was by Marie Benedict. I will say I love historical fictions because to me it feels more like historical nonfiction. The only thing that they're changing up is maybe a detail here and there, where something may have actually took place in spite of like where it took place in the book. And this one was a story about a woman of color who was white passing, which it seems like a lot of the historical fictions or women's literature that I'm reading, a lot of the female main characters are women of color but are white passing, which y'all know back in the day, like you could get killed for some stuff like that. So it's an interesting read for sure. Yeah, so the book itself, I gave it a 4-star out of 5. Just to kind of hear like everything the main female character went through working for JP Morgan, and just like that whole entire story is interesting. It's not one I would have picked up on my own a couple of years ago and been like super interested in it, but now that I'm getting more into like the historical fiction books, they're really like doing something for me. It scratches a particular itch because it opens up back doors to stories that we know but may not know extremely well unless you study certain parts of history, right? So it was a really good read. I do want to see what else she has out in the works, but I did enjoy it and I would highly recommend it. Again, I gave it a 4-star out of 5. And then the next book that I read, which was eerie because the show is out too, like it's been out for a while, but when you like compare the source material, it is wild. And that is going to be Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. I did read the second book, which is The Testaments, but that's a story for another time. We'll get into that later. I gave this 3.75 stars out of 5 stars. It is crazy to think that like women are literally being treated like cattle, especially if you didn't believe in the extreme other people's like points of views and like their beliefs and why they do the things that they do and how things started and then how things ended. Like this is creepy for the fact that like women, yes, we gained rights. We were able to vote, get out loans, own a bank account without our husband. But look at how long it took for us to get all of that stuff. And then look at how much we're being set back. Like, it is crazy because these books were published years and years and years ago, decades ago, and they are now accurately portraying what we are going through today. And it is wild, absolutely wild. And again, I don't like to get too political on my channel because it brings out the crazy in me and in other people, and I just don't have the time for it. But this is getting dangerously close to a situation that we could potentially be falling into, and I do not like it. I don't like it at all. But this was an interesting read. Definitely listen to the audiobook if you can while you're reading this. It was a wild ride. And again, 3.75 out of 5 stars for that one. The next book that I read, this is my first e-arc via NetGalley. It was Long Story Short by Victoria Walters. This was a book about books. The female main character worked in publishing, and the male main character was a romance author who did not or does not believe in romance. And I don't know if this book is out yet at the time of me publishing this, so I will not spoil it too much. I will say again, I didn't care for like the huge age gap between the two characters, but it wasn't like as big as the one in Parable of the Sawyer, where the guy was like mid 40s, late 40s, and the girl was 18. It was a 10-year age difference in these two characters. It took place between the UK and New York, which is really nice because you get to experience different descriptions of different places in the books, which I enjoy. It was a quick read for me. I gave it 3.75 out of 5 stars. It was a good story, but it wasn't the best story. It was lacking a few things in my opinion, but I don't know if this is this author's debut novel or what. But again, relatively decent read. I don't know if it's out yet, so I don't want to spoil too much more for you guys. So y'all go into that with whatever you want to. And then I also got to read Scarred which is the second book. If you're following along in the order for these books, it's the Never After series by Emily McIntyre. If you're following along with the order and how they were published, you want to read it that way, you can. I don't think you necessarily have to read them in order because none of these stories are interconnected, or at least from what I've gotten from the first book, Hooked, and then reading this book. And this is a fairy tale retelling, very dark, mafia-esque or a mobster romance, and this is obviously Scar, the Lion King retelling. But again, in these books, the villain is, they're bad people, but they're the good guys, okay? And I love a good villain origin story, and I like to see them get their just desserts sometimes, because a lot of the times we're sold extreme fantasies of shit that will never actually happen. And actually, when you see things from the villain's perspective, it's like, okay, that's much more believable. These books are spicy, okay? Very spicy. Didn't realize that. And they do usually always involve some type of unaliving of another person or persons, which I did not expect, especially since these are, yes, I know I said the word dark fairy tale retelling, so the villain's origins like point of view, but still, it'd be a lot of things you don't be expecting, right? I am going to continue in the series. I think the next book is Wretched. I'm looking at it on the back. And again, because you don't have to read these in order, I will go ahead. I think I read these. I think I read it before when I picked this in my book pick. But this was interesting. I know there are 1 or 2 books in this like whole interconnected series that a lot of people don't care for when they were reviewing them, but I want to read all of them because I need to know. I know her last book that she drops was this year, and it was Hexed, and that is a Little Mermaid retelling, obviously from Ursula's point of view. So I do plan on continuing reading her books. These books you definitely need to do some immersive reading with, because it is very interesting to hear some of the things that are said versus just reading it and trying to picture the character's voice in your mind. And Tristan, the main character, Prince Tristan, absolutely made me laugh at a lot of points that I should not have been laughing at. And that is all I will say about that. Get into this series, okay? Emily McIntyre knows exactly what she's doing with these. And let's see the next book. And again, remember, I'm combining 2 months worth of reading, so this video may be a smidge long. The next book that I got an e-arc, an advanced reader copy from NetGalley, and that is It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. And I know a lot of people really love this author, or they feel just meh. Me, I'm a little bit on the meh side, but her books always, in my mind, in my opinion, scream summer. And that's usually just me going based off of the cover. I wouldn't say they always necessarily take place during the summer, except for It's a Summer Romance. That one definitely took place in just the summer. But the female main character and the male main character in this was just I don't know, they were an interesting pairing, because female main character is very much type A, like she had a plan for her life, she was really trying to stick to it. And then the male main character, he was just trying to get away from the life he grew up in, which growing up the way that I grew up, I understand that. They were an interesting pairing, but for a very good reason. And I don't know if that book is out yet. If it is, I don't want to spoil too much for you guys, but go ahead and pick it up. I was able to get it super early, which is nice. So yeah, do with that what you will, because I know a lot of people really love this author. I just feel okay about her. She's not like an auto buy or anything, but I did give it 3.75 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, and it left me highly confused, and I had to keep going back and replaying certain parts of the audiobook for it to really make sense. And it's crazy because there's one book by this author that I've read, absolutely love, and will recommend to everybody, but sometimes that's how it is. You will get an author's book and only like one and not really care for the rest. And that is V. Schwab's The Fragile Threads of Power. This book has so many different POVs. It is not even funny. I kid you not. There were like, you got introduced to 2 or 3 people, and then 3 to 4 more people came in. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then there's so many different versions of the same place. It was like gray London, black London, red London, white London. I was like, what? So, and this is a series, but I don't know if I'm going to continue it because I could barely keep up with the first book, and I was really trying. I gave this 3.25 out of 5 stars, and I gave it that rating because I couldn't grasp onto one person long enough before another person got introduced. And that is not to say this book is bad at all. I still think V. Schwab is an amazing author. She writes beautifully. This particular series just was not for it was not for me. I couldn't get into it. And the magic system in this was a unique magic system. I know a lot of people were really into Rachel Gillick's books and how the magic system went in you know, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, but I think the Fragile Threads of Power has a very unique magic system, and it is crazy what happens to the people who do and can control magic depending on what London you are in. If you haven't read it, you know, enter at your own risk. I'm not going to tell you what to do, okay? And then the one book that I did give 5 stars, wanted to give it 6 stars, was to Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. I finally finished this series, and I'm pissed because the way this ends, there's definitely going to be a 4th book, and it took forever, one, for me to get into this series. So I knew nothing about it until I started watching certain booktubers and bookstagrammers explain like her writing and this story, and the fact that it was a King author retelling. It was crazy. And I normally don't like a lot of YA books, but this was written so well. There's definitely going to be a 4th book. I don't want to wait a year, 2 years, however long it's going to take her to write it, but I am hooked. Like, I remember everything that has happened since book 1, and I'm really hoping it stays that way until she drops the next book. And because there's a potential 4th book coming out, and this is a long ass series, I'm gonna let y'all get into it on your own, okay? I just want y'all to know that Brie Matthews, she's that girl, okay? And the things that happened to Selwyn Kane in this book left me heartbroken, and I'm so happy that she got back with damn, what was his name? Y'all, Brie and Sel needs to be together. That's my whole spiel there for you, okay? Her love interest is okay, but I want her with Selwyn, and that's just me, okay? That's just me. But I did give this book 5 stars. Would have given it 6 stars if I could. 5 was the highest I could get it, but it was great, okay? She could do no wrong in my eyes, unless that 4th book is a flop. But well, neither here nor there, okay? The next book that I read, and I don't have it because I just got it as an audiobook because I just wanted to see if it would be a little bit better. I gave it 3.75 stars out of 5 stars, and that was The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. And it left me with the what the hell did I just read kind of thing. It did expound up on The Handmaid's Tale a bit more. Like, you got a lot more backstory in that book, which is crazy because it's the 2nd book, not a prequel. But you get a lot more backstory on key characters, I will say that much. So I did enjoy it for that fact, because now you could really get into that person's head and see like where they were, what the thought process was, why they did the things they did, and how certain things fell into place, okay? And that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it at that. The next book that I read was a book that I randomly picked up in the airport, which, y'all, I gotta stop doing this because buying books in the airport really just be cutting up my little wallet, and I can't do it no more. Needless to say, it really pulled me into her 2nd book. And that is Thea Guanzon. I think that's how you pronounce her name, and it is The Hurricane Wars. This, first of all, this is a beautiful edition of this book, okay? Love it. It is very much on the YA aspect, but it is fantasy with a dash of romance, and y'all, love this. The conflict between the female main character and the male main character is wild. He has dark magic, she has light magic. It's so much. It is so much, but it is a really good story. And a lot of the reviews, a lot of people did not like the 1st book. They preferred the 2nd book. But all of her books so far, the 1st and 2nd book, have left on ginormous cliffhangers. Like, the 2nd book ended in such a way that I was like, what just happened? So there is going to be a 3rd book. I have no idea when that's going to happen. I'm going to be so sad if I have to wait years for it to come out. But I am now, whenever she has that 3rd book come out, or when it's like out in the works or whatever, I have alerts set up, because I have never been so quickly pulled into a YA fantasy book, aside from Tracy Dion and Tomi Adeyemi's books. This very different, and I love it. The way that the female main character is described, like, y'all, she is very feisty, very headstrong, and I love that for her because it absolutely works beautifully with the way she is portrayed throughout this book as well as the second book. I did give this 4 stars out of 5. It does have a little bit of spice, not a whole lot of spice, just a little bit, okay? And then going with that, I did read the second book. I got it as an audiobook because I was too impatient to just go out and buy it. It was already available as an audiobook, and that is A Monsoon Rising by Thea Guanzon. I gave this 4 stars out of 5 as well. This one had a little bit more spice than the first book, and because it is a series of books and it follows what happened right after the first book, I'm not gonna spoil what happened, but I just want y'all to know, like, again, the cliffhanger for this book took me out. I need a third book ASAP, and I'm not even kidding. The next book that I read is Statistically Speaking by Debbie Johnson. I didn't realize, and I should have because it was obvious from the cover. This takes place in the UK. Okay, sorry about that. Not feeling all that well. Think things are a little dusty over here. I need to clean that up. Anyway, Statistically Speaking, female character as a teenager falls pregnant, gives her baby up for adoption, but she consistently thinks about how she's developed as a young woman, what she may look like, what she may sound like, what her interests and her hobbies are, what she would study when she goes to school. And she writes her daughter a note that she's supposed to get when she turns 16 or 18, I forget which, but her adoptive parents give it to her early. And this lady, she meets a young girl while she is teaching at a university, and she assumes that it is her daughter because she has similar features to herself, and the young girl says that she was adopted. It is later brought to light that she was not adopted as an infant, like a newborn. She was adopted at 2. And then she realizes it's not her daughter, but she develops a very strong connection to this young woman and her mother. She befriends them, and things work out in the end for her. And then she is, later on in the book, able to reconnect with her daughter that she did give up for adoption. So it is based on the title, that's not what I was expecting this to be about. I thought it was going to be like toxic workplace kind of environment, but it was a good story nonetheless. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. Again, I just wasn't expecting it to be about what it was. Again, y'all, I keep going into books without like reading the actual synopsis, and sometimes that like it throws me for a loop because I'm like, sometimes I'm like, what did I just read? Or, you know, I had to find books like this one that I absolutely love. So it is hit or miss with reading and not reading the synopses. So don't be like me, read the back of the book. The next book I got an E-arc for, I gave it 2 stars out of 5 because I really was not sure what I had read. It's Something Wicked by Fallon Ballard. If you love this author or you love this story, good for you. I'm trying not to DNF any more books because there are certain parts that disturb me in certain stories, but if you keep reading, they generally tend to be pretty okay books. This, however, I should have stopped reading after the first 3 chapters. First of all, the female main character works in a brothel run by her father, whom she does not know is her father. And she and her twin sister have these magical abilities, but people with magical abilities are, 1, separated from the rest of society, cannot gather in a place where it's more than 10 of them, usually have a hard time finding work unless they marry someone who's non-magical. Like, it is a shit show. The male main character is from royalty. His family has fallen out of power, but he's still trying to keep it because he wants to reshape you know, the country in a very different perspective. But he ends up going to this brothel for the first time, meets the female main character, falls in love with her, and I'm just like, everybody deserves a chance at love, right? But the way that they met, this whole story, like, it just felt like bits and pieces were dreamed up and then just written out in a journal, and then somebody's like, let's publish this and like see how it does. Not good. And again, it was an E-arc. I think this comes out in December. The cover, absolutely adorable. Love the cover. love like what I thought the concept would be, because it says something wicked. So I was assuming like she was a witch and, you know, he was just this random dude who found her. They fell in love. They go through like, you know, hardships of trying to be together because he's non-magical, she's magical, etc., etc. Nope. And then the whole time the mom is trying to like use her daughters for their powers and then kill them so that she can become the highest ranking person, and she wants to change it from being a monarch or queen to being president. It was so much. It was so much. I do not recommend this book when it does come out. I really hope they fix this. I don't know, NetGalley was wild for sending me that one. The next one that I read, and I'm pissed because I read it out of order, but I think nowadays with series, unless you absolutely need to know the backstory and get the building, you can now read them out of order. I read A Legend in Baking by Jamie Wesley, and I know there's another one, I think it's called Fake It Till You Bake It. I love stories about Black love, especially when something as cute as like them baking, bonding over baking comes into play. But the female main character, she works in social media. I think she's like a social media marketer or manager. She's really good at what she does, but she gets slighted at work, she quits, and then she helps her brother and his friend, who have become internet sensations within, you know, the span of a day, like run off of that viral moment to make their business more successful. But the male main character, like the love interest, was, I think he still plays football. He's a football player, but he's football player by day, baker by night kind of thing. They fall for each other. They have the cutest, but also like heart-tugging, like how they were introduced to one another, how they fell for each other the first time, how they grew apart, and then how they came back into each other's lives. I do like it. There are mentions of the characters from the first book and their love story, and I really need to read that one, which I plan on it, because I love, just as much as I love books about books or libraries, I love books about food. So this is really nice. And the way that some of the desserts, the pastries were described, cupcakes, they make cupcakes. The way some of these cupcakes were described, I wanted to go to the nearest like pastry shop and just buy up what I could. Okay, not even make it myself, just go and buy stuff. But it was a really cute read. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I do want to read the first book. The next book that I read, which I was a touch surprised, and you'll understand why in just a wee bit, and that is the 3rd book in the When in Rome series. This is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams, and there were teasers or certain little Easter eggs that were dropped that hinted to a 4th book in the works, and that is going to be with the second sister from the family who these books revolve around. But this is about Emily and Jack. They are elementary school teachers in Rome, Kentucky, and they both live very parallel lives. He is a writer who writes under a pen name, very successful writer, and Emily wants to be a writer. Okay, they went to the same college, they study the same things, they got the same jobs, same grade levels, etc. But Emily is she's really good at what she does, but she is very nosy, but that is expected coming from a very small town. But their whole like story is crazy. They don't even know that they live parallel lives until Emily like lets him know that she's writing a book, and how he found out she was writing a book. It was funny. There were moments in this where I laughed out loud, and the thing that surprised me the most is that Sarah Adams is not known for writing spicy books. Like, they are cute PG-13-ish romances, but there was some spice in this one. Some spice. It was closed door spice, but spice nonetheless, and it was done very tastefully. Like, I wasn't, most of the time when spice is like crazy and like over the top and in like more than like 5 or 6 chapters, I skim through the chapter really fast and then keep reading the rest of the book. But this you don't have to do that with. This is a very cute story, and I love this. And them being elementary school teachers really hits close to my heart because of some things on the outside that I will announce much later. But this was a cute book, and I'm very ready for that 4th book to come out. I think it's going to drop in 2026 or maybe the end of this year. I'm not sure. I'll put the date on the screen for when that next book comes out. But this is a very cute series. This has quickly become my favorite out of the series. I did enjoy the first book more than the second book, but now the third book is like top ranked for me. So I'm hoping that the fourth book is just as good, because I feel like that's going to be a very, very interesting story once we finally get it. And the last book that I read in this whole like little wrap up was Honey and Spice by Babalola Baloo, I think is how you pronounce that. I'm sorry if I butcher that. This takes place in the UK. The characters, all of the characters, main and non-main, are people of color, and I absolutely love that representation. It is very much on the YA side of things because they are in college. They go to a predominantly white university, but all of the Black or people of color, the students who identify as Black or persons of color, have their own like little caucus or meet and greet and things that they do. But the female main character is a radio host, and her radio voice, phenomenal. Okay, phenomenal. And she basically teaches, you know, women of that age how not to fall for the fuck boy, and you know, how to really focus on what they want so that they aren't leaving college misguided or jaded or whatever the case is. And then this guy who is like gorgeous, flawless, could do no wrong in anybody's eyes with the exception of his parents, of course, but he is just like all of that, you know, like he's got that basketball height, the build of an athlete, like gorgeous, and he's got all the girls just kind of like falling over themselves tripping. But I will say one thing about him is the male main character is not a player. He let all the women who came into his life know, hey, I'm not looking for anything serious, but you know, if you want to go out, we can do that, etc. I like when a man lets you know what it is from jump, so that way that there's no confusion. But he still had all the girls tripping, which is crazy. And the female main character was trying to like make sure there was some sense of normalcy and trying to get the ladies back on track from like being disturbed or being disrupted, like their community being disrupted by this newcomer. But the story played out beautifully. The lead up to like certain songs that they were making reference to, it was like I don't want to say super old school R&B, but there were some old school R&B songs, as well as like some 2000, like early 2000s references, and it was the coolest thing I have ever seen. There was UK slang thrown in there, like Black UK slang thrown in there. Like this book was super, super cute. And normally like college settings in like those kind of things in books usually don't, you know, do it for me, but this was a very, very, very cute story. Okay, I was talking about the last book that I read, but I was wrapping that up. Honey and Spice is a good read. I am gonna order it so that I can have a physical copy of the book. That's how much I enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm gonna show you guys the stack of the books that I actually have without pulling out Oathbound, because if you guys know, that book is massive. But between those 2 months, April and May, I read 19 books, and here is my gorgeous stack here. And then of course there were some audiobooks. There was a lot of immersive reading when I could throw it in there. But you guys, let me know if you've read any of these books, you're looking forward to reading any of the e-arcs that I mentioned. Have you had any 5 stars yet? Have you had any 4.5 stars? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, you guys. It is free, and I know you guys enjoy these kind of books. Okay, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.